Hey y'all, welcome to another episode of Fun Flip Repeat. I am your private money lender, Joel Cadlick, and with me, co-host Justin Foster, Mr. Cultivate Real Estate himself. How's it going, Justin?
Oh, it's going great. Springtime's here. Spring's popping. I'm happy. Things are good. Life is good. How about you?
Beautiful, man. You actually just broke a podcast rule. You're not supposed to talk about time frame or days, just in case we want to replay
Daylight savings
episodes.
time just happened. I'm kind of a little bit tired, to tell you the truth. So I'll date the podcast even better than that. It's 2025. How's that sound?
I love it. Well, I can just go back and edit it out. Let's see, use AI editor or something.
Yeah.
No, okay, cool. So want to jump right into it. Today, we are going to be talking about something that's personal to us, but we hope anybody who's listening, audience, it can be personal to you, and you take from it what you will. And we're just hoping this will be helpful to kind of jump into our minds a little bit. And we're going to get probably a little bit vulnerable as well and share some stuff. So really, the topic is do what matters. And some of you might think of that in a way of start with why. I think Simon Sinek wrote a book, Start With Why. Really, really good read. I would highly recommend that book. But yeah, doing what matters. It's a pretty broad topic. We're going to do the best we can to kind of distill it down for what that means to us and why it matters to us. So do what matters specifically in, the businesses that we're in, but also personal, professional, spiritual, all that stuff. So Justin, do what matters. When you hear that, man, I'll kick it off with a question. I don't want to do interview style here, but when you hear that, what is your first reaction?
So I have a very good friend of mine that coined that term. His name's Chad Carson, and you can look him up. He wrote a great book called The Small and Mighty Real Estate Investor. And I very much adhere to this philosophy of investing, that you don't need 1,000 doors or 10,000 doors to change your life. And that, what I'm getting at as it relates to real estate is, and business in general, is that business and real estate are a way for me, I think, to be challenged and to grow as a person, but also to be a breathing exercise for my life. And you want that. You want your business to mature. At first, it's like a little bitty baby and it needs a lot of care. And then it's a toddler, like what Joel has with his daughter. And she's going to run outside into the middle of the street. And you really have to, it's like all hands on deck to take care of your baby business. But eventually you want this thing to grow up so that it can give you other things. And the question is what are those other things? And a lot of folks never ask themselves that question. And there's a lot of people with a lot of money and they're miserable. They're absolutely miserable. And so I think it's worth, as you're in the middle of it or before you even get started, to start with the question of why. And that does a number of practical things for you. But in reality, what it does is it kind of keeps you rooted in who you are and the most important things that you value. So what matters is, the things that are not just money, that strike a chord with you. And you have to kind of look inward to yourself to understand that.
Yeah. And part of that to me is also the journey in and of itself and kind of the beauty of seeing your baby grow. You know what I mean? And every stage is so different. So you've got, the diaper stage, if we're going to use this analogy, the diaper stage and the crawling stage and the walking around, tumbling stage. And they're all so beautiful in their own rights because they're just so different. And the thing that I really kind of cling to as far as do what matters or start with why for me is the ability to be able to choose who I'm going to be doing this journey with. So obviously me as a father and a husband, I get to choose, thankfully my wife chose me as well. But, Ashley and I are doing this journey together and I absolutely love that. And then professionally as well, it's such a beautiful thing is being able to choose those people that you're doing business with. Whether you have a business partner or not, you're in relationship with a lot of people that you're working with. Let's bring this back to real estate investing, right? If you have a crew or you got your CPA or you've got your attorney or you've got your money partner, those people are the people that you get to choose who you're doing business with and who you're rolling with, and having a lot of respect for those people mutually as you're growing yourself. So the journey in itself is a super beautiful thing. And that's a big part of the why as well, is choosing who you want to roll with, is kind of how I think about it too.
Yeah, I love that, man. Who you roll with, it's your ride or die, as people say about their better half and their partner. And that's how I feel, about my relationships as well. And I think there's something about this where if I could be so pointed to say that there's a correct orientation as it relates to growing a business and money. One of the things that I think some people get wrong, and where capitalism can go too far, is it commoditizes people. And so meaning when you're treating, and this happens a lot in real estate, and you see it where everybody treats people, or somebody treats somebody else like a commodity, and it's just the transaction and that's all they care about. Whether that's the wholesaler that's just trying to get one over on the seller or the buyer and they're not telling the truth, or whether that's the title company that's not doing right by their customers just to save a buck here and there. I mean, there's a lot of good people in the industry, but it's easy to fall into the trap of this is just a transaction, that there's not a human being that's on the other side of this. And I think that's a detrimental way to approach growing a business. And the problem is that you can be rewarded to some degree for commoditizing a market, but it's not a very life-giving thing to do. And more of a slow and steady way to do your business is to focus on the relationships first and then nest the transactions within it. So you always want to do that. And I think if you prioritize that correctly, then you're starting off on the right foot. And I'll give you another principle like this. So that's a high level sort of first principle of transactions versus relationships. Like there's a certain order there that you always want to get right. Another thing, you can kind of zoom out even from there. And this is something that Joel and I really started out with an understanding of, or at least a consensus between us about, which is that as it relates to money, none of it's ours. So we move money in our market. Some might say it's a lot. Some might say it's just a smidgen. But whatever it is, it's all of God's. And at least that's how we see it. And that gives us the right orientation that, our job is just to be a steward then of the money. The same thing with the land. Like, don't ever say my money or my real estate or something like that. Like, it belongs to something a lot bigger than you. And if you start from that first principle, what I think tends to happen is certain things fall into place as to what matters. And so what we're trying to get at is sort of like the most meaningful things. And for Joel and I mean, the most meaningful things are in that religious and spiritual realm, and so we can't not go there. And it informs everything else that we do, whether that's a foundation or, the pinnacle of what we're aiming at.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's 100% right. Obviously, I agree full-heartedly with that. And, spiritual or not, what we know is, man, we're just here on earth for such a short period of time in the grand scheme of everything. So like, yeah, this is not yours. This is not the forever thing. Like you've been given the opportunity, ability, and privilege, depending on where you're at, to steward what you have for that moment in that time. And yeah, stewardship is a really, really big deal to us. Like as private money lenders, we are moving a lot of money and we're stewarding private capital, we're stewarding deals, we're stewarding, borrowers, and hopefully doing only good deals and protecting their downside. And it can be, if I'm being honest, it can be weighty at time, because making a mistake in this business can be a big deal, and it can affect a lot of people. So it's like super important for us to put that stewardship mentality in first position and make sure that, we're just doing the best that we can do with what we're given for everybody that we interact with.
Yeah. And so one of the things that, and maybe I could take a step back and talk about our roots a little bit, and maybe even go back before when we synced up around some of these ideas. And it is these ideas that really allowed Joel and I to feel comfortable with going into a partnership together, by the way. It wasn't like, hey, we're going to make a bunch of money. It was like, well, you care about the same things that I do at a most fundamental level. And that really made us feel like this is something that could be a long-term thing. And it has been. But before that, man, I mean, in 2012, before I met my wife, it's a long story. I got a DUI and I was in trouble, and I had to I thought I was making a lot of money in the oil and gas business, but I ended up quitting my job and basically being homeless in Denver and hanging out with a lot of homeless folks. And I realized I had a toxic relationship with money. And I thought it was all mine was the problem. And so there's a verse in the Bible that says, God warns the Israelites, don't go into this land and think, look at my hands and look at what my hands have built here, but always remember the Lord your God and what he's done for you. And it was me, what I did was I thought I was hot stuff, 20 something years old out of college, making, decent money, like it was all mine. And I had it all wrong. And so it was really quite an interesting season. I mean, I didn't have a vehicle. I was biking it all over the place, taking public transportation, working construction, had like my bags and my hammer on my bicycle going across Denver in the ice. And
just for context, don't mean to cut you off. I was in Denver around the same time. So man, I honestly, now that you're saying this, like I might have even driven past you and I wouldn't have noticed.
100%.
Who is this guy?
Yeah, no, but that's, and I was hanging out with homeless folks and I realized, man, there's a lot of folks who, that they don't have a lot and they actually are pretty grounded in who they are. And they have a certain orientation in this world that is wise, and they have other things. They might have friendships. And so there's more to money and there's more to wealth than just money. And some of the more wealthy people that I know, they don't have a lot of money and they're content. And so it really started to show me that it's not like more money is going to fix the problems. I mean, on a certain fundamental level, like that's definitely the case, but it's really your expectations around wealth and around these things that matter. And so if you can have lower expectations than where your growth trajectory is at, then those tend to be the happiest people. And that's something to, think about as you think about wealth management or business growth, is like, what about your expectations management? You know what I mean? Within that.
That's right.
Because you don't want to sell yourself short, but you don't always want the goalpost to be moving. And I see most people always moving the goalpost and they're never satisfied. And, it's worth stepping back and asking like, well, why?
And I think when you hear the word wealth, you immediately think, money for the most part, right? And, one thing that we say, how we define wealth, is more and better options for ourselves, our customers, and our investors. Right? And it's nothing to do with money. Money is a part of more and better options to some extent, right? We are in business, but more and better options can look like a lot of different things for a lot of different people. And like bringing it back to the analogy of like the infant and the toddler, it's like what's most important for the infant or the toddler has nothing to do with money. It's like the love of the mother and the father and being able to be taken care of. And yes, they have to have money to be able to provide to some extent, but like that is so true. And yeah, I don't know. I absolutely love that definition of wealth, is relating it to more and better option. It's not like wealth equals $1 million in cash, because that's just.
Yeah. And people will say, well, look at that person. They could do anything, who have some sort of wealth. And one of the secrets of the wealthy is that that's true, but they tend to be sacrificing a whole bunch of their options towards just a few things and only saying yes to a few things. So that's an interesting thing to think about, is that if you want to be wealthy, you can act like the wealthy. And the wealthy don't have shiny object syndrome. They're like slaying distractions left and right all the time, because they understand the more that they focus on fewer things, the more that specialization within those things tends to grow. So, we've seen that just being entrepreneurs. I can make money here and I can make money this and I can do that and I can do this. It's like, I just pick one thing, be really, really good at it and dominate it. And, you'll see a lot of fruit from that. And a lot of the reasons that we don't see progress or we stagnate can be because of all these options. And another thing people do is they'll compare themselves with more and better options to somebody else's more and better options. So it's a relative thing. And in a secular sense, like,
totally is.
There's always somebody who has a nicer car or bigger house and all that kind of stuff. Sort of just not play that game. That's a better deal, and try to drive your car to the ground and all that kind of stuff as you are in this builder phase in particular. I think that's a good idea. One way to do that well is to just compare yourself to where you were last year. So fundamentally, are you a better steward this year than you were last year? Or, is your net worth going up compared to last year? So you have to track your net worth to do that. And you don't really need to compare yourself to what other people are doing. I don't think that's a helpful exercise, because what matters needs to come from within you, not outside of you. I think that's really where you want to ask yourself these questions, like, why am I doing what I'm doing? What is the most meaningful thing for me? And what are the other things that, as it relates to wealth, that I'm interested in? I'm interested in time. I'm interested in relationships. I'm interested in health. Like, these things matter. You don't want, to sacrifice all these other domains of your life and just be a miserable, rich dude or girl and be basically impoverished spiritually or physically.
Well, yeah, and that's 100% true as well. So Gary Keller's actually got a really good book as well called The One Thing. And what I love about that book too is he's talking about what you're saying here, and it kind of goes back to Chad Carson, who we brought up earlier, as far as do what matters, right? Is you're always going to be leaving money on the table for that. You know, let's say you're leaving money on the table because you're scared, but you are leaving money on the table for that shiny objects, this shiny object thing. But guess what? You're still doing that if you're not focusing on the one thing. So it's like, choose which avenue you want to go to, but also choose like what matters most to you. So if you are all in on this one thing, this one concept, this one idea, but this thing's going to distract you, but it's not going to be as life-giving, but it just is like hanging there with a dollar sign, like that's a really good gut check and a red flag of like, you should say no to that. And it is easier said than done. Like we're here saying this, but like we are guilty of, you know, jumping to something else. And it's really good to have people in your life that you can pull you back and pull you in and say, hey, wait a second, and surrounding yourself with those people. And that takes time as well. But no, I think it's a really good point. The other thing that I think is a really good point is you said, compare yourself to yourself, you know, the previous year. It's not compare yourself to your competition or to what other people are doing or what other people look like or whatever other people's relationships are, because that comparison game only leads, like when you're comparing yourself to others, only leads to absolute misery. And that's the whole like social media thing that's going on nowadays, right? It's like everyone puts their best version of themselves out there. And you can just go on social media and find a way to feel bad about yourself for some reason. It's like, compare yourself to the person you were. Are you making those strides? Are you making those steps? Are you growing? And what does that look like for you? And be honest with yourself, but also give yourself grace and give yourself grace.
Yeah.
That.
What do you mean by that?
Like, don't beat yourself up. Don't be too hard on yourself. Understand that, like, hey, if you've made small improvements, let's call them the 1% improvements, like that's improvement. You're moving in the right direction, right? Because there's the other thing of like stagnation where you're done doing anything or you're going backwards, right? And those are things that you can improve upon. But if you're making small, steady, consistent strides, maybe you're reading one extra book a year. Okay, well, that's great. You can give yourself grace. It doesn't have to be something ginormous because we're all going to fail, guys. It's like the story of the gym in January. Like it's just going to happen here or there, depending on where you're at in life. And that's okay. Unless you're like a diehard, like, you know, CrossFit guy.
I'm failing every day. So here's some good news in business is that if you do go inward and you understand why you're doing what you're doing, this is like a promise. I promise this is the case. And you can communicate with that and you can figure out how to say that in words. Hey, we're in business to give our investors, our borrowers, and our team members more and better options. And here's our values. And we can list those out for you and we can talk to you about them, and it's genuine. And we can see where that syncs up with other people. But if you can do that, you're going to attract people that are like you. So that's what happens. That resonate with your core why and your core vision. And then if you have a vision and you have a core why, then, you know, if you have a strong enough why, you could bear any how. Well, if I were to kind of like stack that statement onto another great book, which is Ask Who, Not How, what ends up happening is you understand, okay, well, I suck at all these things. Right. So this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. And like, I'm pretty good at these things and I really enjoy these things, but I'm really miserable when I do these things and I suck at these things. And then you find people to compensate for that. Then the good news is that you don't have to like be able to spin all the plates and scale it up and pull yourself up by your bootstraps and do all this stuff and, you know, do what the people who are mostly producing this content say to do. It's actually through your weakness that you're able to find other people in business to compensate for that. And there's the ultimate leverage is not really money. Like you could use our money in the deal. The ultimate leverage is other people, getting to work with other people. And so if you can internalize that and realize that the good news is that you don't have to become an expert bookkeeper. You can go hire your bookkeeper. You don't have to become an expert salesperson. Frankly, sales is pretty important. You need to learn how to sell a little bit, but you can go hire a salesperson. Absolutely. For your business. You don't have to be an expert project manager. You can hire a project manager, and you don't have to be an expert capital raiser. You could do that and raise all the capital you need from somebody else who does that. So meaning like identify the places that you're not as good at. And then I think there's just a real gift in understanding, like, you know, how this translates into the practicalities of your business, where it's not just about leveling up yourself and skill stacking, because you're going to come up against reality, which is you're just never going to be good at that. And that's okay. Like, there's a lot of things that I suck at, you know, and Joel will tell you what they are, you know. It's a long list, actually.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Let's, do we have enough time? No.
Yeah.
Exactly. But that's the whole thing of like, this is how I think about it too when we're talking about weaknesses and strengths. It's like, absolutely, you know, don't work on your weaknesses to make you stronger. It's like your weaknesses are your greatest strengths, because your weaknesses expose where you're just naturally not gifted at a certain ability. And it becomes your greatest strength, because if you're playing the who, not how delegation game, then you plug someone in, but you're also bringing somebody else into your community or your world and your values. And now you're getting like, going back to what we were saying earlier, is you're getting to roll with them and do this journey together, and everyone is in the right seat operating in their genius, which is so, so important. So if I went out tomorrow and like took a course on bookkeeping and just tried to be the bookkeeper, it would just never be as good if I was just hire somebody that's their skill and that's what they're passionate about, because I'm never just going to become passionate about bookkeeping. You know, it's just not the way I'm wired, and that's okay. I'm wired completely different. And the bookkeeper's not going to like or do the same things that I like. So yeah, I think your weaknesses are your greatest strengths, because if you apply the delegation and people into that, and business is people. So
yeah, absolutely. So I mean, I want to leave maybe everybody who's listening to this, if you've made it this far, I can't believe it. I told Joel.
Yeah, we'll ring the bell for you.
But look, I'm going to hopefully we can give you something that's practical and useful, that will help you in your business kind of bring an abstract of who, not how, and, you know, have a vision and have a why and what matters. Okay. So it's helpful to write. You know, if you can't just write, you know, a mission statement, that's okay. You might ask other people in your life, hey, what do you see that's important to me? Like, just give me some words, and start gathering words from other people. And that might be helpful. And you can start to maybe formulate, like, what are the core things that are most important to you? Here's another thing that you can do. And this is a very helpful exercise I did one time. If you really want to know your values, you could just write out like 100 things that you like to do. Just 100 things that you like to do. You like to go for a long walk on the beach. You like to rope horses. You like to go shopping. You like to hang out with your spouse on the couch, whatever. You like to cook food, you like to eat food, you like history, whatever it is. And then write one word that says about you. Then go into like ChatGPT or something like that and figure out, okay, what are the words, what are the 3 words that stand out the most to me? You know? And based on what you like to do, how you spend your time, that's what you value, right? And those 3 words, those are going to be the words that are kind of like your North Star. And then how you want to do that is you're looking kind of in yourself, and then you want to incorporate this into your business and how you operate in your business. And so you might give that a go and work on that. Another helpful resource is that we've used as we've implemented this into meetings and into, you know, overall like annual goals and quarterly goals, is the entrepreneurial operating system from Traction, the book Traction. And there's something called the Vision Traction Organizer. You can download it, and it'll have how you list this out. You can grab that from the notes, go away to a cabin and figure out some of these things and start trying to vocalize it to people. Like, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. It's so much more interesting than folks telling you what they're doing or how they're doing things. It's way more interesting to hear somebody running a small business tell you why they're in business, and that be a heartfelt and centered thing. So you can't make this up. You can't fake it. You can't steal it from somebody else. There's no shortcuts. You really have to dig it out of the depths of yourself. But once you do, there's a real gift in that. And it ends up being, you know, hopefully 1 + 1 = like 1,000.
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely.
And that's what ends up happening.
Yep. No, yeah, thanks for sharing that. And that's exactly right. Because I mean, in that, it's not only healthy for you, but it's healthy for anybody you were to bring into the fold, right? We're talking about core values and stuff. And if it's something that is absolutely genuine and meaningful to you, and you've done it sincerely, that is just going to organically take place and take hold in the business that you're trying to grow. And it's a really, really cool thing to see. You guys can, you know, this is true. You can take this to the bank. So
Oh,
yeah, really, really great exercise. Thanks for sharing that. We'll leave show notes with all that stuff. But yeah, man, we went deep on this episode. I hope it was fun. I hope it was exciting. But any last parting words, Justin, before we hop?
well, we're still fumbling through it, but fortunately, we're lucky that we have a little team where other people are there to help pick up the pieces, and that make all the
100%.
difference. So we just
That's right.
love being able to share where we can from where we can.
Awesome. All right, guys, thank you so much. And we'll see you next time.
Cheers.